Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday here from Edmonton, and it is good to, well, see everybody. Am I seeing people? I don't know. It's like, it feels like I'm talking to people. It's really, really neat. But anyway, it is good to at least talk to you guys. Welcome to Spiritual Healthcare, and I hope you guys are having an amazing morning. It is so good to be able to log in with you guys every morning. There's so much to talk about today, and I am really excited about sharing some stuff with you. We've got a great question come in from Twitter. It came in actually yesterday, and I've got so much to say on it because today I really want to talk about the idea of consciousness and whether consciousness is fundamental, whether it's emergent, what that means for reincarnation, and all sorts of different angles of paranormal research. And the really cool thing too is I really want to be able to share with you guys about a brand new project that is coming out of Yale University, and it is so phenomenal, and it's something that you guys can actually participate in and do at home. So along with a couple of other things that I've come across along the way. So I am really excited to be able to share all of this with everyone. Give a few minutes to let people join in, and I've got some great reading today, actually from my great-great-grandfather, Albert Durant Watson. He founded, for those of you guys who don't know, founded the first paranormal association in Canada. So that is pretty significant. His two books, The 20th Plane and Birth Through Death, The Ethics of the 20th Plane, were incredible books, delving into the world of a fellow by the name of Louis Benjamin, who was a channel. And so the information and the reading that I'm going to do for you guys today is all about, it is going to be from one of those channeling sessions, which is pretty neat. So fantastic information. As I say, we've got lots to go through this afternoon, but I want to get into this amazing question from Twitter, from Shadow on my page, and I'm going to summarize I'm going to summarize her question as best as I possibly can because it's really long. But she wants to talk about the laws of thermodynamics and energy and how this applies to things like reincarnation and whatnot. So she says this. She says, I personally believe that we are reincarnated, but even if we weren't, herein lies the question. When we say someone has an old soul, we are speaking with the assumption that the person who has the old soul is so because they've been here before, learned many lessons, and are therefore more enlightened, and so on. Taking into account the laws mentioned above regarding souls and the constant increase in population, where are the souls and extra energy coming from for the new bodies? I love this question. I love this question so much because she told me that she was going to have some really deep questions coming in and whatever, and honestly I love those ones, man. If you guys have them, please send them because I love them. So this is such a great question, and of course a lot of the answer is going to be theological, because we don't know really what happens after we die. We can pull these different studies, and we've got researchers all over the world that are trying to understand this, but it's one of those things where we can only kind of hazard a guess. So I'm going to put my best foot forward on this one, and I'm going to try to answer this for you, Shadow. So I think there's a couple of different lines of thought that we can use to think about a question like this. And I think the first question comes, or the first decision comes from David Chalmers' question, or David Chalmers' statement, which is consciousness fundamental or emergent? So that means, is consciousness something that is within our environment? Is it something that is existing outside of the brain, or is it emergent? And because it's emergent, it's coming from the brain outwards. Okay, so the hard problem. This is called the hard problem, and it was coined that years ago, and it's been something that, of course, has been debated over and over and over again. So the more we study the idea that consciousness it might be fundamental, which means our brains are acting like a receiver, right? We're translating that consciousness and projecting it outwards. But the consciousness doesn't come from the mind, it comes from elsewhere. So as they've been studying this, they've begun to realize that our current model of the brain is more and more likely to fit with this model of consciousness and awareness. So let's say, for example, that consciousness is indeed fundamental, so we are translating it. There's been a school of thought that has believed, and Shadow brings this up in her question as well, that people remember choosing their parents, for instance, from the perspective of non-physical before they manifest here. There is a school of thought that you know, whatever that is, whatever that collective consciousness is that projects us here, you know, when it has an idea, it manifests something, and it manifests us in the same way, for example, that we manifest things in our world. We have an idea, we focus upon it, and all of a sudden, bam, we end up getting, you know, we see that manifestation happen in our environment. We have to remember that thoughts are energy, right? So every time we have a thought, that thought energy is always in existence. It is just there. So every time we have a thought, we are generating new energy. The neurons in our brains fire. You know, we're generating a new idea, and the more we focus on it, the more that grows and grows and grows. So there is a school of thought that people are. Oh, hello, Gert. There is the school of thought that if this consciousness is coming up with us as ideas, and it's projecting us forward, right? Projecting those ideas forward, that we are coming forward almost like an idea of our inner being. So we're going to go down the rabbit hole today, I promise you. So that's one school of thought on this, is that energy is coming from the thought base of collective consciousness. And we can see and understand and read a little bit more about collective consciousness, you guys, if you go and research the Global Consciousness Project that's being run by Dr. Dean Radin. And I highly recommend checking this out. The Global Consciousness Project is about the idea that we can actually measure. Hello, Shadow. We're talking about your question right now. The idea of the Global Consciousness Project is the fact that we can measure this collective consciousness. Okay, so and the research is phenomenal. They've documented cases from Burning Man. They're actually watching the curve right now with COVID-19 and watching people react to it psychologically, but on this global level using random number generators. So Global Consciousness Project, check it out, because I think that definitely relates to what we're talking about. So the other school of thought, I think, on this question in particular, is the idea that our past and our future might not be our past and future. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, when we take a look at some of the current models in quantum mechanics and quantum physics, they really bring up the idea that our idea of linear time is really a human construct. We really don't have that, and time slows up and it slows down, speeds up, depending on our moods, depending on things that are going on in the world. It's not something that is this consistent time like a clock ticking, right? So when we talk about something like reincarnation, for instance, are we actually talking about reincarnation? I love this subject. Are we talking about reincarnation of something that has happened in the past? Or are we talking about something that is happening in the now, but in another reality? So if we want to look at our realities, almost like a double slit experiment, right? Where, you know, upon observation, it changes, right? And so we have all of these probabilities out in front of us, and the probability that gets focused on enough is the one that we experience and manifest. So if we want to take a look, maybe we'll call that the successful probability. If we want to look at reincarnation in that kind of a way, maybe what we're actually experiencing, right, is something that we're focused upon enough, but there's all of these other probabilities that could have or are existing in the current now. So it's a different way to look at it, but it's something that is worth considering, that maybe we're not necessarily experiencing a past life, but we're experiencing a life that is actually currently going on in another reality. So there's, as I say, there's a couple of ways that we can look at this. And so at that point in time, you know, we're not talking about necessarily extended energy, but we're talking about the same energy that's happening on different levels and in different realities. So there's a couple of, as I say, a couple of different schools of thought on this. There are some amazing studies in reincarnation. I recommended to you guys yesterday the Psi Encyclopedia, so PSI Encyclopedia. Go grab, I'm going to actually compile a link of books and, or like a list of links and books that I've recommended to you guys so you have it. But the Psi Encyclopedia has got some incredible studies about reincarnation, and you kind of have to wonder that, you know, does this actually apply, does this apply, or are we pulling this information from various points in the universe, right? Like, we've talked about the Global Consciousness Project and the idea that this world is, we have all of this information that's accessible to us depending on how we tune into it. Are we accessing different parts of our own created reality, or are we accessing different points of realities that are already in existence, you know, maybe through somebody else? So there's so many aspects to this that we could really delve into. We could be literally talking about this all day. But those are my two main schools of thought on this, is that, you know, there might be some time issues here, but it also might be the fact that, you know, our inner being, you know, the greater part of us, is manifesting and is creating in us just in the same way that we manifest and create in our world, in the physical world that we see. So just some schools of, of thought on that. I love this question so much. Please, guys, send me more of these, because I love discussing. I love discussing this stuff. It's really, really great. And there's more to this question that I want to get into. And the one part of it that I really want to talk about a little bit more, is Shadow mentions some people have said that they recall picking their parents, and how does that play into this set of ideas? At what point in time does a soul enter the body? Is it upon birth, or does it happen later? Is there a way to determine this with any backup? And that is, again, such a brilliant part to this question, and we just don't know. But with the idea of fundamental and emergent consciousness, right? That consciousness is projecting forwards, our brain is translating it. The best example that I can give for this is like how we translate light. Okay, so our eyes, for example, don't actually do the seeing, right? It's not, our eyes don't process the image, but it does translate the light, it gets the information, and it translates it through the brain so the brain can process that information. And the argument with fundamental consciousness is that it actually, that's what our brain does also, just in the same way all our other organs do, like our ears, our tongue, our eyes, and that our brain is actually translating and processing that consciousness as well. And that information, and making us kind of, you know, making our meat suits work, right? So when does the soul actually enter the body? Very good question. With the idea of fundamental consciousness, we kind of think probably quickly, you know, and the fact that, you know, I think we forget sometimes that our cells themselves, you know, are like, they have an awareness. They're working towards different things. They're working towards well-being. They don't have a consciousness in the same way that we like to think about it. Hello, Simon. They don't have the same consciousness that as, you know, a walking, thinking being would have, in terms of, like, you know, us or a cat or a dog or a snake or something like that. But they do work to different ends. You know, so I think we have to realize that, you know, each one of those cells, it's highly probable that that's conscious as well. There's a concept in parapsychology called panphysicism, and I recommend taking a look into that. And it is the idea that, yes, we are connected, that every cell does have an awareness, and right down to cells of inanimate objects, actually. So panphysicism really interesting subject. So I highly recommend delving into that too. So today I also want to start with a bit of a reading. So this is really cool. So this book is my great-great-grandfather, one of his first books on paranormal, Albert Durant Watson. Now, for those of you guys who aren't too familiar with me, my great-great-grandfather was the founder of the first paranormal association in Canada. He worked with a fellow by the name of Louis Benjamin, who was a channel. And my great-great-grandfather, he was actually a very noted physician in Ontario. He was a very famous physician. His home there is now a historical site, and he's just a phenomenal person, and he really put his career on the line to get this information out there. It wasn't talked about in the early 1900s. It was kind of, parapsychology was still very fringe. And if you were a physician and you were talking about it and practicing it, you were considered like, you were losing it. So what I want to read to you guys today is from the 20th Plane, and it is part of a channeling session that Albert Durant Watson hosted as Louis Benjamin passed on this information. And it is probably, these books have been out of print for a long time, but you can still get them on Amazon. And I highly, highly recommend them. They're so uplifting. The information is fantastic, and it's phenomenal. So the group of intelligences of spirits that came through Louis Benjamin, they kind of alternated by calling themselves the Publication Committee and the Humble Ones. So this is what they said and what was asked. We are as real as when on the earth plane. That is, we have qualities by which we shall permanently be known by all who ever knew us. The question: do you think it is right to pursue the investigation we are now engaged in? Which they were talking about, continuing to talk to them, talking about parapsychology, that kind of thing. They say, yes, because this is not the picking of a lock on a door where it's written, do not enter. This is not a question of dates, material information, personal affairs, but the entrance of the whole into a soul into a higher estate. Question: what has been the most surprising truth that you have learned on the 20th Plane? And the reply came back, that I am alive. Well, I absolutely love this passage. And I'll tell you guys a little bit about how the planes worked from their perspective. They believed, and the information that they gathered was that we were on the 5th plane. And these were all different frequencies. I think if you were to translate this work now into, current scientific speak and, quantum speak, we'd be looking at frequencies and whatnot, frequencies of existence. So they would say that we were on the 5th plane, and that the 20th plane was when you pass over and you get to this other space. So I love the phrase so much. When they ask, what is the most surprising truth you have learned on the 20th plane? And the response came back that I am alive. And it kind of goes back to something we talked about yesterday, where, honest to God, most of the people that the people that I know that qualify as dead, none of them have passed over. None of them have passed over. They are emotionally just, checked out, bankrupt, whatever it is. And dead, I really believe, is a state of being. It's not a physical state. The spirits and the intelligences that I know I've had the pleasure and joy of interacting with over my 20 years of doing this have been just absolutely so brilliant, so aware, so alive, so incredibly joyful, and hoping that we come in and make that connection with them. They kind of sit back waiting for us in this space of pure positive energy. And, when we connect with them, it's always something that they're very excited, very happy about, and wanting to impart this information, which is so cool. So I wanted to give you guys something, again, to a process that you guys can work with, because I've been doing that every day. And the process that I want to encourage you guys to do, speaking of things like manifestation and stuff like that, is something called the prosperity game. So I know a lot of people are really struggling right now with finances and, you know, waiting for government assistance and whatnot, because everybody's been really wrecked by what's gone on, especially those with small businesses and things like that. So here's how you guys are going to play the prosperity game, and you guys can mess around with this. Basically what you're going to do is every day write yourself a check, and you're going to write yourself a check for your it's going to be imaginary bank account for now, but I want you to think that it's, you know, this is real. So you're going to make your bank account, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to deposit that $1,000 into it, okay, your imaginary $1,000, and then you're going to have fun spending the $1,000. So you're going to imaginarily go along, and is imaginarily a word? I don't know. It is now. You're going to go along and you're going to spend money. Have fun with what you would do with that extra $1,000. So on day 2, you get another check and you get to deposit $2,000. On day 3, $3,000. Day 4, $5,000. So by day 50, you're going to have about $66 million in your bank account. In your bank account. And the great fun about this exercise is that you guys get to play with not only imagination, but getting into the feeling place of having more money. And it's something that's so interesting, because what we've noticed, especially, believe it or not, in paranormal research as well, as we've talked about before, what we focus on, we create. So as long as your awareness is about something not being there, guess what happens? It won't show up. So if your awareness is on lack, if your awareness is on, man, I wish I had, you know, this sucks, I wish I had more money, I don't understand why I can't get more money, then you are literally holding yourself apart from that frequency of well-being and abundance coming in. So this is a great little game to kind of play around with the feeling place of having a little bit extra, and it's really fun to just, you know, go window shopping online and stuff like that. It's really cool. So play around with that a little bit. It's just a fun thing to do, and you're going to find your resistance around that money coming in starting to shift and lift. I do this with my clients all the time, in regards to, okay, what does your day look like when, you know, there is no haunting activity going on in the house? What does your day look like, you know, when you've, you know, not experienced something frightening that day? What would you do with that time? And, you know, they start to write it out, and the more they're focused on what it is they want to do and what it is they believe their environment's going to look like, the more the environment starts to change. So this works the same way with things like money and stuff like that. And so that's something you guys can play around with. But I also have, this is so neat, I have a couple of things for you guys to check out for fun, some paranormal stuff. And I will post the link to this. Everybody's probably been noticing that people are doing, like, you know, behind the scenes tours. Yesterday I talked about, there was behind the scenes tours to the Paris catacombs. I posted that on the Entity Seeker page. So neat. So anyway, there is now a tour of Chernobyl. And I know so many investigators have wanted to get in there, and of course it is so dangerous, it's crazy. But it's really neat. They've given a digital tour of Chernobyl that you guys can actually tour around online. And it's just, I never would have thought of this. I had no idea that this was available. Thank you to Patricia for sending this along to me, because I had no idea it was there. So I'm going to be posting a link to the Chernobyl tour on Entity Seeker right after this live stream. The other thing that I wanted to bring up today, which you guys can actually participate in, and I so hope you do, Yale University, okay, has announced a really cool project called the COPE Project, okay? So the COPE Project, it's come through something called the Spirit Alliance, which is a conglomeration of neuroscientists and psychologists and meditators and mediums from all over the world, and they're looking for people to tell their story about their psi and paranormal experiences. So they're doing this strictly, literally to understand more about when people are having, say, a perceptual experience. What is it like? What is the difference between that, say, and something that you would consider mental illness? And they're trying very hard to make that distinction, because there has been research that has come out recently about things like hallucinations, and they're beginning to question where the line is, of course, between, you know, mental health, mental illness, and you know, psi experiences and hallucinations, and what that looks like. Because right now, there's been information come out from Christine Simmons-Moore, an amazing researcher, and that line is becoming very blurred. So Yale University, Yale, is coming out with this, and it is now available. So I am going to put all that information on Entity Seeker today, so that you guys can have fun with it, read it over, participate, you know, share your stories, because this is going to literally be going into some of the, probably some of the best research in the world on parapsychology and mental health. So yeah, so something fun to look at. It's so neat to see these, say, these major universities really pitching in and trying to, you know, bring this to the forefront. It's exciting. So, as always, thank you guys so much. I want to run through some of our daily affirmations with you guys as well. Don't forget, please, to come on April the 4th to Ritual Exorcism in Film and Television on Crowdcast. I'm so excited to be doing this with you guys. So please come out to that. It will be 6 p.m. Mountain Time on April the 4th. It's a Saturday, and it's going to be a really cool show. We're going to be talking about, as you know, the history of exorcism, some of the true cases. We're going to be listening to evidence and all sorts of things like that, and talking about it. And I am so excited about it. Please come out to that. Grab your tickets for it soon. The class size is pretty huge, but it is going pretty quick, and there is a cap on it. So, and not my cap. It's just the Crowdcast cap. So please grab your tickets really soon for that. I'm so thrilled. So anyway, let's everybody take a deep breath and exhale. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and they know how to achieve individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the course of this illness. I only have to gently, eventually release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. There's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. Well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately aware of my physical body. My cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive, and Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe, and I can do that easily. Take a deep breath, everybody, and exhale. Thank you guys so much for this morning's spiritual life class and spiritual health care. We are going to be doing so much more of this. Tomorrow, of course, we will be back again. We've got so much more to cover, so many more questions. I've got more stuff for you guys. Thank you all so much for coming. It's such a pleasure to be with you guys every morning, and I will see you guys tomorrow right here on Spiritual Healthcare. See you.